Namaste, hello, and welcome to India Global Week 2020. Be the revival, India, and a better new world. I'm your host, Priyanka Deo from New Delhi, and we've had some fabulous panel discussions and guests, and we have a lot more coming up. In fact, India Global Week is huge. I'm proud to announce that we have over 10,000 registered attendees from 69 countries. So as Manoj said, India Inc. has truly given us a platform to share amazing ideas and explore opportunities and have some action from that. So the world is coming together. We're going to have a fabulous discussion as well that I'm moderating. So let's get right into the discussion. Now, this session is titled India's Global Brand, Changing World. We're going to talk about things including how India's brand has changed over the last few years, what can be done to generate a better understanding about India in the media especially, and what does the future hold for Brand India, and where are the challenges? With that being said, I would like to introduce my fabulous panel of experts. First, we have Vijay Chauthaiwale, in charge of Foreign Affairs Department, BJP, Mr. Umang Bedi of DailyHunt, the co-founder, and Anurag Varma of Infosys, the Vice President and Head of Government Affairs. Welcome, panelists, and shall we begin the session?
Yes, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Priyanka.
All right.
Great.
Thank you for being here. So the first question that I have goes to Mr. Chauthaiwale. Can you explain Brand India and how it has changed over the past several years, especially under the Narendra Modi government?
First of all, thank you very much, Priyanka, for kind introduction. And of course, congratulations to our dear friend Manoj for such a grand success of this India Global Week. As far as Brand India is concerned, from the naive person like me, for common man, there is a sea change. 20 years back, I was in US and one of my friends went to India for a visit. And after he came back, I asked him, American friend, that you must have seen several surprises in India. So he said, yes, India is a country full of surprises. But the biggest surprise is that there is a country like India on this earth. So that is the kind of expression, weird expressions the visitors of India used to have. And now it has changed drastically. There is enormous understanding of India's potential, not only because of our IT power, because of yoga, because of Ayurveda, because of our lifestyle, but also as an emerging power which is compassionate, which gives a helping hand to people in the need wherever in the world it is required. It is non-intrusive and non-dominating. So these are kind of the hallmarks of brand as in India, and Prime Minister Modi has enormously contributed to bringing India to this level. And I narrate one more incident, and that before I stop my opening remarks. 3 years back, approximately, I was at Nairobi airport for one of the events for Prime Minister Modi. And on early morning, I was having some shopping at the airport before leaving. The program was yet to happen. It was my preparatory visit. And a black young guy on the counter, he asked me out of curiosity that which country you belong to. And I said, India. So as soon as he said, I said, India. He said, oh, Mr. Modi. So I said, yes, Mr. Modi. Then, his first sentence was that, man, the world needs 10, 20 Modis to change the situation. And then later on, I told him to enhance his curiosity that, do you know Mr. Modi is going to visit Kenya? And he said, no, he doesn't know. But if he comes to know, he will take a day off simply to take picture of Mr. Modi. So that is the kind of brand Mr. Modi has created as an individual and also the leader of India. And I guess therefore the great success, it's a great success story of India as a brand. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Now the next question goes to Mr. Umang Bedi. Thank you for being here. Namaste. My question to you
Thanks a
is,
lot, Priyanka.
especially in the media space, you're a leader in digital media. And now we're entering a world, as you can see with this conference and with India Global Week as a whole. This is the new normal, right? What do you see as brand India going forward in media, especially?
Priyanka, thanks so much. Let me start off by just zooming out a bit, right? I think when people, as Dr. Vijay said a little while ago, people are now looking at India with a sense of expectation and awe and a growing ease, with which we are able to manage our diversity, our government, our people, democratically, globalization, thinking economically and strategically, right? I think when you think about what the government has done over the last few years in terms of opening up the economy, ease of doing business, making the nation more competitive, driving up the productivity index, looking at the World Bank report in terms of ease of doing business, we're getting better. And if you think about it from a startup ecosystem, it's vibrant, it's happening, right? There are over 9,000 startups. The government has recently just brought in the whole concept of Atmanirbhar as well, wherein a lot is now being asked, being self-reliant. And I think the confidence is attributed around the brand identity that India has created for itself with its talent pool, right? I think we would provide the workforce to the world by 2030 when you look at the aging population and the demographic dividend that we have. And lots of innovation. When you think about innovation, and I'll just come to the media part of it in a second, but when you think about the world's first 1 terabyte micro SD card, it was designed, built totally out of SanDisk's Bangalore facility. When you think about how we are responding to the pandemic, whether it's PPE suits, whether it's ventilators, we already are amongst the largest pharmaceutical manufacturing spots in the world and will be playing our role, once the vaccine has been discovered. So whether you look at auto, whether you look at pharma, whether you look at IT, innovation is at the core of what we do. And I think when you think about media, there is this new world in this new normal where Indian media, Indian tech companies have to come to the forefront because we've got to do a more proactive job of telling our own story, right? As a society, we're a vibrant, free press, thriving mass media country. We have an extraordinary ability to tell stories and to be more persuasive than those of its rivals, right? But the important thing for us is to highlight the right stories. I think at times we're not portrayed always in the right light. And I think now's the opportunity. Forums like these, what Manoj is doing, getting people from all over the world to hear the story, to hear what's happening is a massive opportunity. So I feel very excited about where we stand and the road ahead. So I'll just pause on that one and over back to you.
You made a very interesting point, Umang, about the talent pool. And that's something that the Prime Minister Modi said at the inaugural address that he gave just yesterday at India Global Week. He said that India will be a leader in the global revival. It's not just going to be a follower, one of the leaders because of our incredible talent pool. With that being said, the next question goes to Mr. Varma. Thank you for being here, first of all. Big namaste to you. And my question to you is, you're a leader. Infosys has always been a leader in terms of employment and in terms of technology. Now, especially with the new normal, looking at digital technology and a digital economy, a potential digital economy. I mean, we can see it with this conference. We have 69 countries coming together and talking about idea exchange and action. How do you see what is, let me just put it this way, to go forth with the answer. But what is brand India to you in your active and your background?
So it's very interesting, right? So I joined Infosys a few years ago, but before that, I used to represent Indian interests in Washington, D.C. So the government of India, I used to represent going back into U.S.-India nuclear agreement. And if you look at where we were and where we've come as brand India, it's been spectacular. In 1998, in the United States, in particular, after the nuclear tests, brand India was not in a good place. In a short 22 years, I mean, it's come to this point where even this U.S. White House and around the world, everyone is pivoting towards India. It's been pretty spectacular. on the tech industry and who we are, we have not only become one of the larger suppliers of talent, but we are also a training industry. So if you take all of the Indian IT companies, we have learned is how to create the next generation of tech workers. So we're not just exporting talent, we're exporting the ability to create talent. And that's what we're finding, whether it be the United States, Canada, Romania, Germany, is we have the know-how to create the next generation of talent. And this unfortunate pandemic situation has moved the needle in terms of when you say work from home. It's about digital skills. It's about what we can do in terms of creating that talent for all these countries in which we operate. And again, so not only do we in India do we have the talent, it's actually our ability to take that know-how to countries and raise their talent.
Great. Now, with that being said, I think that I can attest to you because I grew up half in Chicago and half in India, and I was a 90s kid. So you're absolutely right and totally right when you say in the 90s, brand India was not the same as it is today. It was nowhere, in fact. And that was a known fact. The people in my school, I remember students, they would relate to India from the show The Simpsons, if you remember that one, where, all Indians are like Apu from the petrol pump, right? Now it's changed. And now the scenario has also changed. And people are looking at India in a different, as Dr. Chauthaiwale was saying, people recognize our prime minister. When I was a kid, nobody knew who the Indian prime minister was. So it's a very changed scenario. And now we're heading into digital, which I think is the future, especially for media. So the next question is to Dr. Chauthaiwale. In terms of media, since you are with a political party, how do you see the nature of politics and brand India going forward, especially keeping social media in mind? Dr. Chauthaiwale, your mic is on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the party like BJP, which is very tech savvy, social media is a natural unfoldment of what we are trying to reach to the people. And we see it as a media where there is no intermediary, there is no filtering, and we can directly give our message to the people and globally. And you will be surprised that in the lockdown, where the conventional political campaigning, rallying is not possible, BJP is the only party maybe in the world who has reached virtually millions of workers and the common man through the digitization. They have conducted BJP has conducted close to 40 rallies, digital rallies. And all over India, we could reach sitting at one place, most probably in our home or in the party offices, and maybe in the small gathering of 10 or 15 people at every place. So this is the power of technology, and digital is the way forward. And I am pretty sure that world will also take a note of it, but BJP is far, far ahead in this experiment.
That's here. And, the digital rallies were really something. They amassed many people and made people aware and well-informed of issues and what the BJP stood for. So as maybe Umang, you can answer the next question that I have, because as much as digital media and as powerful as it is, especially social media, we can have a digital rally now amassing millions of people. We can have virtual conferences like India Global Week, where we're amassing countries together and continents together. This election, especially, and I can attest to it because I've worked on elections in the United States as well as the election campaign. I did a small bit in India as well. What I noticed in this election campaign, and also, with certain events in India, especially the CAA and the Delhi riots, there was a lot of misinformation and fake news, both in the media as well as digital media and social media, right? What is the way forward? How is this going to impact brand India? Because a lot of people are unsure of what to look into, and there's very little regulation in India on media.
Thanks, Priyanka. So let me start off by saying that, when you think about India, I would like to refer to it as the United States of Europe. Every time you pass a country in Europe, the language changes, the culture changes, the diversity changes, the religion changes. We're a country of a million gods, right? And that's what Bharat is all about. Bharat is not about the 6 metros where 70 to 80 million people live. It's about the 4,000 towns and the several 100,000 villages, which is where the true Bharat resides, right? And it's very, very diverse. So I'll give you an anecdotal story around how social can be used and misused. The power of social media, as Dr. highlighted, each. But very often it is used to disseminate the wrong information. I remember 8 months before, and we at DailyHunt stand for Bharat. We serve about 280 million monthly active users in 14 different local languages. We ran a poll which was called DailyHunt Trust of the Nation, which was a political poll 8 months before the national elections. Now, these questions, and there were 14 questions. It was not administered by DailyHunt. It was administered by AC Nielsen, which is the worldwide standard in polling in the US. What was amazing was as follows. 7.6 million people responded to that poll in 10 days.
Wow.
That poll called out Modi with 69 or 72% support, saying that he would be voted as the next prime minister. And I remember when we announced the results to the poll, the entire media fraternity in India had boycotted our platform. That news of the poll results were boycotted. And it was incidental that the BJP in that month, a week before or a week after, had lost 2 state elections. But the pulse of Bharat, or the people of Bharat, really understand what's happening at a national level. And so 7 or 8 months earlier, they called the result which we saw, right? And they got it right. And now I think when you think about social media, are you addressing an English audience who's living in tier 1 India? Because he or she is not India. There is such a wider, more vibrant beyond just the top 6 cities. And I think getting their pulse, having the ability to tell their stories in their language is extremely important. Right now, what I see happening is that the coverage on us is either sensational or cold with regards to India. We need a much deeper understanding of how India is functioning. What are the challenges and difficulties? What's the work happening at a grassroots level? Because every state, while one state is very prosperous with industry, another one may not. The challenges are very diverse. The solutions are very diverse. An e-commerce company that is delivering to India 1 needs to completely change its methodology while delivering to India 3. In the same way, social media platforms need to evolve. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to address Bharat, but it requires an innate understanding of Bharat. And I think what the, several examples of who've understood this well, right? The ability, I remember hearing a speech where Prime Minister Modi addressed participants and I saw a video, I think someone showed it to me, in 14 or 18 different Indian languages. He spoke maybe for 3 or 4 minutes. Now that ability to connect with an audience is very, very critical, right? And I think that's what people appreciate. I think at the end of the day, the ability to tell that story. Social is just a medium. The part on fake news, I think a lot needs to be done there. It's a science for another day, Priyanka. But I think efforts started in that regard to ensure that people are getting the right information at the right time.
Thanks, Umang. So with that being said, Mr. Varma, the question that I have for you is, now in the technology space and in the IT space, how do you see, you're talking about employment and the talent pool a little bit before in your previous answer. You mentioned that. How do you see Brand India? How can tech be used to promote Brand India, especially in this new normal where we are dependent on technology exponentially? I think COVID-19 has exponentially increased our use on technology, accelerated this process for us because anyway people are towards digital and tech. How do you see Brand India going forward using technology and our talent pool in the IT space? I think your mic is muted.
Sorry, thank you. So before I get to the new normal, I'd like to talk about where companies like us were headed and are headed in various countries, not just the United States, in Europe and Australia, other places. We're now investing in local economies. So in 2017, Infosys committed to hiring 10,000 American IT workers, creating and training 10,000 American IT workers. We're uniquely situated to be able to do that, right? What do we do in Bangalore and Mysore, right? Is we hire freshers and we turn them into amazing IT professionals through our training system. Right. So what we're doing is we're exporting that know-how. All right. So what we did is we announced this in 2017. We have since hired about 12 to 15,000 American tech workers, and we've created 6 different campuses across the United States. In places like Indiana and Phoenix, and we did the same in Romania and Düsseldorf. What we're doing is we're creating these centers, right? So what we're doing is we're exporting India, right? And it's our know-how and our ability to create talent and provide digital services. But all of it is investing in the local economies. And by the way, in India, we expect the same. We expect that if you're a foreign company coming to India, that you're going to invest in our people, right? So this is the next wave. This is Global India 3.0, where we expect those who come to India to invest in our people, but we will in turn go to these places and we'll invest there. Now, when you say the new normal, as a services hub, India, we provide the ability to have a global view in helping. So if you're a large bank in the UK or in the US or in Australia, right, what you need is service. And that's what we're amazing at. And that's what we're exporting. So we're exporting this ability during pandemic to be reliable and to continue to make sure that the everyday citizen of Australia or UK or India or US or Canada, right, that they're able to have the services that they're accustomed to because we are reliable. And I think the reliability that we provide in terms of services as India as a country and we as a people, that's something that in the new normal is something that people can hold on to.
Yeah, I think that service and reliability are both actually very foundational things that need to be there for people to trust the new normal and go forward. Otherwise, they'll still be in this doubt of, should I join the Zoom sessions? Should I not? Right? So the next question goes to Dr. Chauthaiwale. I just wanted to know your opinion on the new normal. When we're talking about brand India, in terms of political parties and politics, now we've spoken a little bit, Umang elaborated a little bit about fake news and some action needs to be taken. And he said this is a science for another day because it's just so vast of a subject, this topic of misinformation, fake narratives, fake news going on. How do political parties like the BJP fit into brand India in terms of integrity, in terms of pushing brand India forward in the new normal where we are dependent on digital technology? I think we lost him for a second, but while he comes back, can I push a question onto you, Umang? I think you called it a science, but I was totally going to come back to you on that. Now, say that there's a lot of work to be done in this space, right? Because this is a very big issue. Fake news, misrepresentation, fake narratives, not just in local papers, but in mainstream media consistently without regulation. I believe, for the Delhi riots and for the CAA, an advisory, was put out by the Supreme Court. It got that bad because of the migrant worker crisis a little while ago. During COVID and during a lockdown, we had thousands of people gathering in close proximity because of a fake narrative that was put out in mainstream media. So when you say it's a science for another day, what are some of the challenges we face? Because it's a very important thing to tackle. And if we don't tackle it, it definitely is going to impact brand India going forward. How can we prevent it?
Yeah, I think the ability to tell a story effectively and verify it and fact check it, I think are two things that are, getting more and more popular. I think a lot of us have been influenced by, the WhatsApp University, in terms of all the forwards that we get. There's a lot of work that is happening even under the current regime in India to see how the work with social media platforms is kind of regulated and the transmission of information is verified, right? So that's one way of doing it. The other thing is telling an effective story. Now, the part of fake news, in a society, if you contrast, let's say, which is there is no free and there is no media, we have an extraordinary opportunity. That opportunity is really to find the right stories with the right representation. When you think about how India is covered or information is stated out, it could be exaggerated in some course in terms of a discourse that is archaic and dates back several decades, right? A lot of times I see India being portrayed as a country of snake charmers. Now, is that fake news? Or is that stories that, we've just moved so fast and so far along? And so I think the opportunity comes for Indian companies, Indian brands, Indian media platforms, Indian social platforms to go out there and be able to disseminate that story more effectively because they have the audience and the reach into the real readership or the real Bharat, right? If you think about what has changed, what has changed in the last couple of years, and I could go to an extent of saying that Brand India has been created by our Prime Minister, who's also our Chief Marketing Officer, right? Who has gone out there and created that brand. There is that, when the Howdy Modi events happen or when something happens, there is this sensationalization of stadiums getting filled. Now, that is a cohort of our brand. It is an aspect of our brand, right? The other aspects of our brand come back to the positive stuff that's happening. Just look at the amount of FDI India has attracted in the last 18 months. It's actually grown 18 to 20%, whereas the rest of Asia has dipped. If you look at the geo story, right, of what Reliance has created, it is matched with connecting the digital divide. If you're thinking about 10,000 startups, I don't know how many people knew, but we are the third largest country in the world in terms of startups and in terms of unicorns being created by startups. And when you think about the recovery from COVID, even if you look at the number of cases going higher, you can paint a very negative picture with that data. But the other way to look at that data is look at the recovery rate and look at the mortality rate. So, when you cut data in different slices, you can create packets of fake news or news that is not really representing the full picture. So the ability to show diverse opinions, the ability to show the full data is the need of the hour. And net, I would just say that the future for us is very bright. You look at our macro trends, you look at our demographic dividend, you look at the way good governance has come in, you look at the way we are navigating through, stepping up, being bold, and, really being a strong, confident, resolute India, which is now being recognized and acknowledged across the world. So now we need platforms in media to emerge out of here to tell that story and get that story not only across the warp and weft of Bharat, but across the world. And I think India Inc. is doing one part of that, and we at DailyHunt are trying to do the other part within Bharat itself. So I think that's the opportunity that I see forward. I'm very positive about what this brand India is going to be by 2030.
Yeah, I think we're all waiting for it. And I think it was somebody mentioned in one of the previous panels that it's not a matter of years, but it's a matter of weeks, days, months, and minutes at the speed India is going. That being said, Chauthaiwale, we lost you for 1 second, but let me go back to the question that I wanted to ask you, which is what is the responsibility of political parties like the BJP in terms of pushing Brand India forward? And is the BJP doing a good job with it, or it does more work perhaps done?
I think BJP's message and the message of Prime Minister Modi's good governance is definitely crossing the boundaries of India and resonating all over the world. Part of it, Umang has already elaborated quite well. So without going into it, I would say that there is definitely enormous awareness about India. not only about its soft power, like its IT powers, its yoga, Ayurveda, which I have mentioned past, but also very free media, democracy, and the diversity. And on the top of it, when we come with the economic progress and innovation, again, as mentioned by Umang, it gives enormous value to brand India, because there are very few countries in the world right now who are democratic, who have a free society, expression, freedom of expression, but at the same time, their values are cherished not only by their citizens, but they are universal values of brotherhood and empathy for those who are in the downtrodden path of the path. So, taking all this as a one basket, I guess India gives a very unique proposition of values and systems. Of course, it has its own hurdles and drawbacks. I am not denying that part. No country is perfect, but we are aware of it. We also have our own things to sort out. But by and large, if you see as a balance sheet, we are quite on a positive trajectory in last 5 years. And Prime Minister Modi again has contributed significantly to this story of brand India, because he has become a great communicator, not only to the global diaspora, but also to the outside world. And no wonder that whatever he says is resonated all over the world. And the latest example being his talk yesterday at on the same platform, which was received by millions and millions of people across the world, because it was his first speech in a post after the COVID crisis has emerged. So he is taken very seriously by our friends and foes alike, and he has created a great narrative for India, a positive narrative. And I would say that this is the way forward for India.
Great. With that being said, we were just talking about Narendra Modi. That leads me right into my next question for Mr. Varma. When we're talking about international relations, when we're talking about public affairs, as we said, I think called PM Modi also India's chief marketing officer as well. How can is there a way to more effectively use media, technology, to not just push brand India forward, but also to strengthen or bolster international? And I think we have 69 countries present in India Global Week here. So I think the audience is very curious for your answer.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, right? So when we talk about the role of a corporation like Infosys, for example, and the role in pushing forward brand India, and you talk about media, what we have to understand is that there is a transactional relationship, right? So Infosys has customers. We go to our customers across, the world. We're in 41 countries, and we do their IT services, right? And then that's it, right? So that is a transactional relationship. I think what we need to start doing as corporate India, as India Inc., is what we need to start doing is creating and pushing forward the non-transactional. What is our participation within chambers of Congress, chambers of commerce, IT industry associations, corporate responsibility, right? So in the US, for example, we do a lot for STEM education among schools and teachers. What do we do in terms of pushing issues with all of the employers, IT industries, right? So I think it's a lot of brand India, and the media will come with it, right? But we need to participate alongside, shoulder to shoulder, with the local industries, with the local communities, and do it in a way that we're creating a sincerity of a relationship. So, for example, Toyota used to be considered a Japanese company, right? Now Toyota is just Toyota, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's this idea that Infosys is not an Indian company. Infosys is just Infosys. It's your Infosys. It's my Infosys, right? So that's what we need to create, right? It's the next level. Brand India just needs to become brand everyone. And so I think that's 4.0. That's where we want to head, where having a beer and a samosa is what everyone does, right? Like it's not something Indian, right? I mean, I think that we need to start exporting. We need to start exporting all our culture in a way that's really recognizable in every locality where we are. But I think that's the next for India Inc.
Great. And that leads me right into my next question. I think we're running out of time, so I want to get last thoughts. I'm going to put the same question out for all three of you. Let's start with Dr. Chauthaiwale. Now, we've spoken a lot about hard power issues. We've spoken about corporate, we've spoken about tech, we've spoken about sectors, government, media. Let's talk a little bit about India's soft power and the power of it. I think, Dr. Chauthaiwale, you said right at the beginning of this session, I think Modi has also done a fantastic job of not just yoga, but Bollywood. We had a segment on sports diplomacy where our sports are being promoted like never before. And I played tennis when I was a kid. I was a ranked junior, but I ended up going to the United States and playing because it was not so much when I was a kid in India. And that was a fact. Now it is. And now the scenario has completely changed. Can these and are these tenets being used? Is our soft power being used to bolster brand India? Or can we do a better job? Dr. Chauthaiwale, your last thoughts, please.
I think there is always a scope for improvement, but we have done enormous progress in this regard. And I will give you one example, as Anurag was saying, that we need to mold our own assets in a way which is acceptable to the world, rather than being very rigid about it. And Indian classical music, the way it has been adopted by the Westerners, by a slight fine-tuning about it, is a classical example started with Pandit Ravi Shankar, and it is followed all over the world. I will give you another very interesting example of how yoga was promoted in the countries like Saudi Arabia, where it has a religiously very conservative country. And when the Yoga Day celebration issue came, there was obviously an issue that it can be a mean to promote any non-Islamic religion in Saudi Arabia. But we could pursue, and Saudi Arabia accepted it, that yoga can be treated as a sport. And they recognized it as a sport, and they said, you cannot do the religious or spiritual part of yoga or chanting or humming om, etc. But as a physical exercise, you can do it. And it is now very well accepted, and therefore thousands of people in Saudi Arabia are actually following yoga. So somewhere we will have to also make some adjustments rather than being very fastidious about our beliefs. And there is a world waiting for us to accept it wholeheartedly, because it knows that India is offering something which no other country can offer. And I guess that's the real power of India. And it is, again, as I told you in the beginning, it is non-threatening, it is compassionate, it is full of empathy, it is non-dominating, it doesn't ask you to give up your own beliefs and faiths, but adopt something unique and different. And India, therefore, to an extent, a lot of people also compare the way Israel treats its diaspora and why India cannot emulate that model. And I always say that it is different. With our genes are different, our DNA is different. India will treat its diaspora, India will deal with its diaspora the way India is, not the way Israel. The formation of two countries is totally different. History is totally different. So we don't have to emulate someone else, but we'll have to create our own brand value, and that's the real strength.
Mr. Varma, I think the same question to you. You said, beer and samosa should just be a thing to do. And I think yoga is a great example, especially in the United States. At least in Chicago, where I grew up, it was just a thing to do, no matter where you were from. The instructor says namaste at the beginning and the end of the session, but everyone goes to yoga, right? With that being said, how do you think that soft power can be to bolster brand India? Your last thoughts, please. I think we're running out of time, so I request you, if you can, to keep it brief.
I'll be very quick, right? The only way to know India is to know India, right? So we took the governor of Indiana, the first ever governor of Indiana in the history of Indiana. We took him to India, right? The only way to know India is to know India, right? And I think that people in India underestimate what it is for someone who's never been to India to go to India, right? So I think that actually one of the big values is not just to know an Indian, is to know India, right? And I think the more, I mean, again, post-pandemic, right, we need to encourage and find ways for leaders all over the world, corporate, nonprofit, government. We need to just bring a lot more people to India. It is for those of you in India, really probably underestimate the power of who we are as a country. So I think to know India is to know India. So that's where I'll close that. But thank you.
I think that's great. And I think, after, hopefully you don't go for the beer and samosa after the yoga class. You go, and then you go to yoga to burn out those calories, right? So thank you for that. Umang, your last thoughts, please. How can we use our soft power to bolster brand India, especially in the media?
Just two words: entrepreneurship, which is our people, and jugaad, which is the way we get things done, right? Which is what makes us resilient and agile. So jugaad is really the innovation that we thrive on. And if you think about it, in India, for India, building products for Bharat, exporting those products now to the rest of the world, right? Whether it's Digital India, whether it's Startup India, whether it's Make in India, whether it's Atmanirbhar Bharat, to me, the crux is going to be innovation. It's going to be entrepreneurship, and it's going to be resilience, and taking those models to the rest of the world. I think that's the soft power that you can always build up.
Thank you, and wonderful words from all three of you. I want to thank you. We're out of time, but this was a great session. Thank you for your wonderful insight. Audience, thank you for being here. There's over 10,000 of you across continents right now. If you have any questions for our panelists, if you want to share your thoughts, be sure to use the hashtag #BeTheRevival and follow us here on India Incorp. That's at IncorP. That being said, stay tuned for more on India Global Week. This is your host, Priyanka Deo.